It's 3 minutes after 8 o'clock. You're listening to East Georgia's Morning Show, powered by Southern Chiropractic and Wellness Center. I'm Brian Steele.
And I'm Travis Bilger.
And we have a guest in the studio here with us this morning, Ray Rodriguez, candidate for sheriff. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning. It's good to be back.
Glad to have you on here. Yeah.
They sound like twins.
Yeah, we try. We work together way too often.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
Yeah, I need a vacation is what I need.
I need a vacation.
Yeah,
yes,
you do.
I've had a morning. Anyhow, Ray, glad to have you here with us. See, I did it again.
Yeah, so I was trying not to do it that time.
Okay. Today is election day.
Today is the day.
So what do you want people to do right now?
Of course, everyday life is hard. You got to go to work or, take care of your children. But you should take some time out in your busy day and go to the polls and make your voices heard.
And today is a primary, so the people are selecting candidates to run on either the Republican or Democratic ticket.
Right. So unfortunately, some of these races are partisan. So you have to pick. In November, then you can obviously vote for whoever you want to. But today, you have to either pick a Republican or Democratic ballot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of a rough system, the two-party system. There are a lot of candidates that kind of fit more in the middle than anything. But,
absolutely.
It's if you don't pick one side or the other, then you alienate everyone instead of no one.
Right. You should just be able to vote for the person. If you do some research on the candidate and you think that this is the person for the job, then it shouldn't matter really what political spectrum they see, as long as you know that they can do the job.
Well, the state Senate race that's going on today is really confusing because they've
no Democrat.
Well, they've got the jungle voting thing for who's going to fill the unexpired term, and then you also have who you want to run in the primary
in November.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really confusing.
They're going to probably go through like 3 different elections. Before the year's out.
Yeah, well, they'll probably, because there are 3 or 4
if
candidates.
There's a runoff.
Yeah, so there'll probably be a runoff, and then,
oh boy,
yeah, it's just going to be fun.
Yeah, and all this time, you would think maybe they could just make something a little less complicated. It's unfortunate that Jack Hill died, but one of the candidates brought up a good point in that Jack Hill, he didn't have a competitor. He ran unopposed. So what were they supposed to do when he died? There was no one there ready to fill that spot. So,
unless you were thinking about it already or having some kind of base, for that plan in the future, it caught a lot of people off guard.
Yep.
Hopefully this doesn't happen again, though. I feel like once is enough, So we'll learn from this, hopefully.
Well, today being primary day, what do you want people to know about you as they head to the polls?
Well, I want to know
polls.
Well, I want people to know that I'm transparent and I'm going to be tough on crime. And you have to be transparent because nowadays you have so many optics of things. We have stuff that's going on with the George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter movement. You want criminal justice reform. You have to be transparent when you're in police work so that the community can really feel like you're part of the community.
See, that's a big part. Transparency with law enforcement is a huge deal because in my lifetime, I personally never seen more tension between the American community and law enforcement communities. So where it's really coming to a head right now. So on that topic of transparency, what do you intend to do to maintain that transparency?
Well, one of the best things that I can say probably would be to bring professionalism back to the profession. And, I was talking to a friend of mine who's also in law enforcement not too long ago, and sometimes we feel like if one agency has a bad seed, a bad apple, per se, and we know that this person shouldn't be in law enforcement, most people tend to just let them resign or they just leave or whatever, and then we're kind of done with them. And then they go to another agency, unbeknownst to them, and then that cycle continues. So if all the good cops really just stand against those bad seeds, then we can weed them out. Because if you're a good cop at any time, if you see something that's wrong, whether it's from an offender or from a fellow officer, you should always speak up.
I agree.
Yeah, that's good information. I mean, that's a good way of looking at it, and that's kind of a hard culture thing that has to be changed, because to band together. And if one sees another one doing something they shouldn't, there's kind of a code of silence that happens sometimes. And,
you have to break that code of silence. You
exactly.
Have to, and with the George Floyd case, it was clearly a murder. No good cop that saw that video would say that, oh, well, that was a good arrest. Obviously, what they did was wrong. It was totally wrong. It was murder, and they're going to go through the process and be punished. But there were so many failures in that process with all the red flags that should have come up with that officer with the use of force.
Exactly.
So he had so many use of force complaints that eventually somebody in his chain of command should have said, hold on a minute, like, this guy's not doing what the profession needs him to do, and we need to show him the door.
Yeah. He either needs to be retrained or he needs to be out of here.
Yes.
Yeah, he needs to be in a jail cell, honestly.
Well, yeah. That's what obviously what needs to happen now. It seems like somebody should have intervened before it got to that point.
Absolutely.
And the fact that there were 4 officers there, and that police department, they had actually had an incident back in 2016, and they had rules to try and get other officers to intervene during things like that. So it really was just a breakdown on multiple levels.
Right, and there were 4 officers involved, and unfortunately, from what I see or read, the other 2 officers had only months on the force, so they were looking to this guy, a senior guy, for guidance, and they were probably not trying to do that intentionally, but then once this guy says, oh, well, I'm going to stay in this position, and who they're going to listen to, that was the guy that should have corrected it, was the senior guy, and he was the one that was doing it wrong.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we are here with Ray Rodriguez. Today is the primary election day here in Bullock. Ray is running for sheriff. We're going to be back with more after this. This is 8:22 here on East Georgia's Morning Show. I am Travis Bilger, joined by Brian Steele.
Good morning.
And we are joined by a very special guest. It is Ray Rodriguez. He is running for sheriff right here in Bullock County. Ray, thank you for being on here this morning.
Well, thank you guys again for having me and my lovely wife and my campaign manager here as well.
Absolutely. Glad to have all 3 of you in the studio with us this morning. Now, we were talking about this a little bit off mic, and this is an issue that I've been trying to really talk about in the last couple of weeks. Voting is something that, especially my generation, does not take nearly as seriously as they should. I'm in the firm believer of, I don't think my vote for president matters. Electoral colleges, blah, 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 blah. Who cares about that? But voting local does matter. It matters a lot because we had an incumbent city councilman who lost his seat by 7 votes.
7.
7. Yeah, a handful of people. That's like you're allowed to have at least 10 people in a group right now, so right. That's not even one gathering. Voting locally really does matter, and that's something that you was talking about with us a little bit off the mic. So you have some statistics about the voting, the voting populace here in Bullock.
Right. So, last time I came on the show, we were talking about why it was so important, for people to understand that the criminal justice system in Bullock County and the Ogeechee Circuit is changing a little bit. So we have, the DA's up, the solicitor's up, the sheriff's office is up. So what people vote today could affect the way the criminal justice processes in Bullock County are. So it's very important to get out and vote. So these are just approximate numbers. So, roughly Bullock County has about 80,000 people. Normally about half of that are registered voters, and then only about 25,000 normally vote at the general election.
Wow.
So now, in the primary, it's a little bit different. So you roughly have about 10,000 people, who would vote and decide, who pretty much goes into a 4-year term if they're unopposed.
Wow.
So, it's very important, register to vote, stay informed, demand change, and vote today.
See, that's a big deal because it's 10,000 people. So, if you have 6,000 people that vote for you, 4,000 that vote for anyone else, that's just a guaranteed win.
Right.
That's a big deal. People don't understand that. Your vote really does matter right now.
You know what my mom used to say, if you didn't vote, then don't complain.
Exactly.
You don't have the right to complain.
And what that points out, we're talking about 80,000 people being the population. What we're looking at is about 10,000 of those 80 deciding what the other 70,000 are going to have to live with.
For 4 years.
For 4 years.
And that affects them in the pocket, in their livelihood. So what if you have somebody that wants to increase taxes that is not financially responsible,
right?
And then now, they have to raise taxes to fund, whatever it is that they want, and then now it affects me, in my pocket, and takes money away from my household.
And then suddenly, you realize maybe I should have gone out to the polls and voted. Because right now, these are the people that will be shaping your lives here in Bullock for the coming years. So you really want to make the best informed decision that you can.
And a lot of people kind of shy away from the university, but the university, if the young men and women that go to Georgia Southern feel empowered and come out in numbers, they can dramatically change the election and the results in Bullock County.
Yeah, that's all it would take is the people at Georgia Southern, the students out there registering to vote and deciding that they wanted to make a change. And if they voted as a block, they could make wholesale changes in Bullock County. So it's really important, not that I'm against the college and not that I'm against students voting, but it's very important that everybody get out and vote so that their voice can be heard.
Right, and you have to do research. Like I have a website, is rayray2020.com, REY2020.com, and you go on there, and I'm transparent. I have my Army documents, my police documents, I have my awards and all this other stuff. Just go in there, click on all the tabs. It's all there for people to see. If you take away the title Democrat or Republican, or you take away the tag, I'm not from here, or I'm Latino. If you just look at me for me, it's all there. It's all transparent. People have to make an informed decision because it really does affect their lives.
Right. Now, on that topic of informed decisions, you mentioned this in the last break, and this is something I want to touch back on. You talked about transparency. You talked about you'll be tough on crime. Now, I'm not saying that Bullock is a criminal wasteland, but there are obviously some changes that need to happen in terms of criminal enforcement here. There's some things that aren't being properly addressed. So what are some areas of the criminal justice system that you think need some changes here in Bullock?
Well, if you go back and look at what happened in the paper the other day, so, you had two people that were employed there. They made some very bad decisions, and, they're not working there anymore. But if you're going to uphold that specific law, to the rest of the community, then you should uphold it with your employees. So, like I said earlier, bringing back professionalism to the profession. So if this was a case where somebody, I'm in the Army Reserve, I have to take a urinalysis normally every time I go to a battle assembly. Mm-hmm. So, we have to increase urinalysis. Everybody who was involved in that situation, they should have been tested. But at the end of the day, we just need to be professional people. Our profession really has, there's no leeway for error. And it's one of it's the hardest job in America right now. Being a police officer in America today is the hardest job in America. You have to, be a sharpshooter. You have to be Mario Andretti when you're driving to a call. You have to be a counselor. You have to be aware of children's behavior, marriage counselor. You wear and you have to know the law. So you wear so many hats. You want to have a process when you get people to work for you that, they're educated, they're well trained, and they're professional.
Well, and it seems just self-evident, but it doesn't seem too much to ask that the people who are in charge of enforcing laws obey them themselves.
Right.
That just seems like an obvious thing, but sometimes it's not. I mean, even going back to the George Floyd thing we were talking about earlier, if he had been, if that officer had been obeying the law, we wouldn't be talking about it at all today.
Right, and in all my law enforcement training, and I've had community policing and defensive tactics. I've been in SWAT training, and none of those classes has an instructor ever said, "Hey, put your knee on somebody's neck." That is not an authorized. You're taught positional asphyxiation. Mm-hmm. Even if you just slightly have somebody that's overweight in a bad position where their chest can't rise and fall, you're risking their life. So it really just goes back to training. And I hear calls about defunding the police. That's not what we need to do. We need to fund more things like crisis intervention training, have more training and community policing so that police officers can blend in with the community and it's not that us versus them mentality.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of tension. Well, there's a lot of tension with the police departments around the country and their communities right now, but Being a police officer, you don't get time to think about things sometimes. You're put in a split-second decision.
Yeah, 2-3 seconds, you have to make a choice that could impact somebody's life.
And it could impact the entire country.
Right.
So,
and as a sheriff, when you have rallies like we had last weekend, and, your motto is, I'm a sheriff for all people, and then here are the people, and you're not with them, that kind of in itself sends a message like, now is not the time to be silent. And yes, it's a political minefield, and you have to navigate it carefully because it could mean, a re-election or not. But at the same time, you have to stand for justice, and you have to stand for what really matters.
true words.
Well, we're here with Ray Rodriguez this morning, and we'll be back in just a few minutes on East Georgia's Morning Show, powered by Southern